Welcome to the BuiltOnAir podcast, the variety show for all things Airtable. In each episode, we cover 4 different segments. It's always fresh and different, and lots of fun while you get the insider info on all things Airtable. Our hosts and guests are some of the most senior experts in the Airtable community. Join us live each week on our YouTube channel every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, and join our active community at BuiltOnAir.com. Before we begin, a word from our sponsor, OnToAir Backups. OnToAir Backups provides automated Airtable backups to your cloud storage for secure and reliable data protection. Prevent data loss and set up a secure Airtable backup system with OnToAir Backups at OnToAir.com. As one customer, Sarah, said, having automated Airtable backups has freed up hours of my time every other week and the fear of losing anything. Longtime customer David states, OnToAir Backups might be the most critical piece of the puzzle to guard against unforeseeable disaster. It's easy to set up, and it just works. Join Sarah, David, and hundreds more Airtable users like you to protect your Airtable data with OnToAir Backups. Sign up today with promo code BuiltOnAir for a 10% discount. Check them out at OnToAir.com. And now let's check out today's episode and see what we built on air.
Welcome back to the BuiltOnAir podcast. We are in episode 3 of season 18. Good to be with you. Myself, Dan Fellers, and regular host, Alli Alosa. And we may have Camille join us later in the show. She's working out some internet issues, but we're also joined by Brian Scott. Welcome, Brian.
Hello. Thank you.
Glad to have you on. We'll learn more about Brian and his story coming up in this episode. But first, I'll walk us through what we're going to be doing. We always do an hour-long show. We'll focus first on round the bases, keep you up to date on everything going on in the Airtable world and communities. Then we'll focus on our sponsor, OnToAir, and talk about their backup solution. Then we'll learn more about Brian and his background and what he's doing. And then he's going to showcase a base that he's built that works with LinkedIn and a posting solution using Airtable and Make.com. And then a shout out to join our community. And then finally wrap up with Alli's going to showcase using percentages to build stacked bar charts. So with that, around the bases, one thing I'll talk about, I don't have a link to it, but we had last week there was a builders meetup in Brooklyn out in New York. I flew out for it. It was cool. But there was some drama around it. So we always talk about the good, bad, and the ugly of Airtable. And I won't name names or anything, but Airtable probably didn't handle communication the best way possible. There was a lot of people that wanted to go to this, and apparently there was a waiting list. And people on that waiting list didn't know they were on the waiting list until the day before the event, and were notified that there wasn't room for them after many of them had made travel plans and whatnot. And so there was obviously some backlash to that and discussion on different forums and whatnot. So hopefully, sorry for anybody that was planning to go to that but couldn't. And I would imagine that Airtable wishes they had a redo in their communication channels on that.
I would say so.
Yeah. So that happened. But the event was good. Luckily, I was not on the wait list, so I was able to attend and had a good turnout. And it was great to meet up with folks at that event. And we'll see. They don't have any new ones planned for a while, so they might be taking a break or changing strategy. We'll see what they do next.
Excellent.
And then the other thing, one thing I was going to show, have we talked about this, Alli? This new, let me find it in this space. The new, this new drop down. I don't feel like we've ever talked about this.
I don't think we did. I don't mind it.
Yeah, I like it because a lot of times you want more information. I wonder, have you looked into this, like how it decides which fields to display?
I'm guessing it's the same as the old one, which is it's the topmost grid view in a table. So whatever grid view comes first. So usually when I set up a base, setting up a view at the top that has like the most important fields all the way to the left. And typically controls not only what you see here, but also when you expand a record from another table, it's that order in which the fields fall. So I would guess it's the same thing here.
Yeah. So anyways, it's probably been 2-3 weeks that I've noticed this.
Yeah, I think it's a slow rollout, and I think it's nice. It's not as it kind of more mimics an actual like drop down rather than having that pop up show up. Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyways, that was something I wanted to highlight. A cool feature. It's not in the what's new, so it's kind of one of those undocumented updates.
I like how you can change the width too. You can drag it wider so you can actually see the full name if it's really long, which is nice.
That's good. Yeah.
All right. You guys already
another big announcement this week. Airtable is now HIPAA compliant. That probably is good for you, Brian, in your world.
It is. I've had a couple of customers that were reluctant to move, even though it wasn't PHI data, but just the fact that they kind of like all of their systems to be HIPAA compliant. So this has opened up a few doors for me.
Yep. So, yeah, anybody in the healthcare world that is reliant on HIPAA compliance. I know it's been requested for years. I don't know what's required to get it there, but whatever it was, it took a while for Airtable to get there, but is now there. You do have to be on the enterprise tier and have to sign an additional agreement with them. But it's now available, so that's good news to open up more channels.
Hey Dan, back on your linked field that you were showing there, had you guys already discussed the AI recommendations? That's what they're calling it. Where had you discussed that on a previous episode?
Yeah, we went through all the new Airtable features, including the linked record matching.
I hadn't watched that episode yet, obviously. I was asking, but I figured that you did. But I found that to be pretty handy because it cleans up a lot of the records there.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. That's a great tool if it's successful at matching well.
Absolutely.
All right, continuing on. This one wasn't big news or anything, but just kind of more humorous. Somebody just kind of posted, "Hey, this is from a Salesforce person saying Airtable is looking for a Salesforce admin," and kind of ironic, but Airtable does use Salesforce on the sales side. They didn't build their CRM in Airtable. Like we've built several CRMs in Airtable for clients, so it is possible, but Airtable is not quite there yet in building it out. So it's funny they're looking for a Salesforce admin at Airtable.
But it's funny.
Okay, a few more. This is just kind of always interested on people building third-party apps on top of Airtable. There's a lot of UI platforms already out there, but here's a new entrant. Not quite live yet, but if you like to explore new tools coming out that are built on Airtable, here's a new one. It looks like it's called Basefront, and looking for pre-orders and beta testers, but you can basically build out a UI on top of Airtable. So if you like, this is probably going to start simple, so probably won't have the complexities of Softer or other platforms, but for some use cases, that might be all you're looking for. So here's a new one coming out in the market. And
I have a question for you on that, Dan. Have you guys ever had any information from Airtable or know what their kind of position on this whole third-party market on UI coming up? And do you feel like they're going to kind of lean on that and kind of limit their own AI development focus and just let the third-party community kind of manage that largely?
Yeah, that's a good question. Alli, any thoughts?
I think they are well aware of all these third-party front-end builders, and they've made steps to improve interfaces, I think, to get a little closer to what those third-party tools offer. I'm not sure if they're ever going to, be able to replace them. We'll see. I think that might be something they're interested in. But I have actually had them come out and say, we don't intend for Airtable to be the back end for a front end app, but they're well aware that that's like a vast majority of the use cases that people are doing with it. So we'll see. I'm excited to see what comes from this in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say they'll get there eventually, but it's not something on their 1 to 2 year roadmap.
Really?
So they're kind of okay with these guys out there, but eventually I would say in 3 to 5 years, they solve that use case would be my guess.
Yeah. I think that's a good prediction.
Yeah. So, all right, here's another one. This is kind of cool. Actually, I met this team at another builders breakfast, I believe in San Francisco, talking to them about this tool. So cool to see they're launching it. So basically it's a AI platform that can go through all of your data, and it looks like even across multiple bases, and perform insights using AI across all of your data. So this is not on a per record level. This is across all your data. And so it's called AI or Air Insights. So yeah, this is pretty cool. I will say Airtable is likely going to be providing this, at least at the per base level. I don't know if they'll go across bases.
Right.
So that might still be unique, but my guess is Airtable has the ability to do some of this in the next 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, if you're looking for maybe more insights and whatnot for AI across all your data, here's an interesting tool to check out.
Absolutely.
All right, here's another one. Actually, I'm gonna skip that one. Did this one. Okay, here we go. So here's kind of more just an idea of how this person's asking how you would use Slack as like the interface to a base where you could ask questions, almost like AI, where Slack could be, you could have a channel where you would just ask a question, and then maybe it would use something like Air Insights or something on the back end, or just, make.com AI or something that would just return you a response, almost a Q&A chat bot inside of Slack that talk to your Airtable base.
Interesting.
I don't know if so Scott mentions maybe data fetch can do that, because I know data fetch is a pretty cool tool, and it talks to like OpenAI. I'm pretty sure that they have an integration with OpenAI, so you can maybe do that through data fetch. But that wouldn't be talking directly to Slack. So, but maybe data fetch talks to Slack. I'm not sure. So I don't know if there's other ideas. I imagine you could build a Slack bot that could do something like that, but I'm not aware of any solution as of now.
Yeah.
All right.
But
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I could imagine it's possible. I don't know how worth it would be, but at least not yet.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to X.com. So Airtable just getting some recognition, getting in. I don't know how prevalent this ET30 is, but just getting recognized as a top 30 enterprise private tech company. So shout out to Airtable. Congrats on that. Here's one. If you use Notion, this is a Notion expert talking about how Airtable looks really nice as an embed inside of Notion, and how they like the UI of Airtable better than Notion's gallery view in particular. So yeah, I've seen that a lot where you use Notion for kind of like the documentation platform, but you still use Airtable as like your data source, and then you just embed tables inside of Notion.
Yeah.
You can't edit them or anything inside of Notion, but if you just need a read-only data view.
Yeah.
No, so it's a common use case. Okay, here's an interesting one. This is from Zapier. So this is the head of director of AI at Zapier. It says Central just released our #1 most requested knowledge source, Airtable. So I was like, what is Zapier Central? I'm a Zapier user, but I don't think I had heard of Zapier Central. So I looked it up, and it's basically an AI bot. And so this actually might solve that question of Slack and Airtable. Building AI bots, maybe you could use Zapier Central that's in preview. So this now supports Airtable, so it looks like you can build a bot. And this is pretty intriguing from Zapier that has connections to just about every SaaS platform out there, where you could build AI bots across all of your SaaS products. Is pretty interesting.
Very cool.
That is cool.
So I'll have to start playing with this, see what this looks like. Because I assume, I haven't looked into this, but this might be, kind of a competitor to Air Insights, if that's kind of what it's trying to do.
Yeah.
In addition to every other data source that they support. So we'll see how many. Curious what data sources they currently support. Anyway. So yeah, Zapier, they're definitely pushing AI hard. I know they've got some direct integrations with OpenAI and whatnot. Speaking of that, there's if you're interested in kind of what we talked about on all the different ways that Airtable AI works and the use cases for it, here's a document that will kind of walk you through a training from Airtable. So that gives you more insight. And then here's one more from the Airtable team. They did a marketing trends report. So if you're interested in reports, I actually downloaded it here. So kind of talks about some of the research that they did and how it impacts. And of course, it speaks highly of the use case for Airtable within marketing departments, solving a lot of the pain points that Airtable or that marketing departments have. Things like, no single source, siloed information, things like that. So, all right. I think that wraps up everything in our communities of what's going on. I take that back. There's one more. Actually, there's two more. Sorry. Okay. Heather in the BuiltOnAir community talks about, I guess there was a change. I didn't fully understand this. Hopefully, Alli, you were following this. It requires a click to create a new linked record for some key combo other than a simple return. So I think if you were highlighted on a linked record cell, you could just hit return and it would bring the search. But I guess they took that away.
Interesting. Yeah, I saw this before. There were comments on it, and I was wondering what it meant. I don't actually know.
Well, I guess it was when you were searching. So if you were searching for a lookup, you could hit return and it would automatically return the top one. Now you have to hit the down arrow to select that first one and then hit return.
I just tried it. I mean, with the new picker, like I just hit the plus and then hit return and it selected the top one. So I don't know.
Maybe they brought it back.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe they did. I haven't run into any odd issues like this. Doesn't mean that other people didn't, but that's cool.
All right, last one. On the what's new, there was two new ones for April, this HIPAA that we already talked about. And then last week, we already talked about the default settings for dates. But it's also, I think we also recognize that checkboxes can now default to checked. But it looks like they also added default settings for collaborator fields and multi-select, which is really good.
That's great.
So yeah, very useful. So, and the cool thing on collaborators is you can select the current user. So that's kind of cool. So you can auto assign something to the current user.
I like that. That's the first time we've seen that current user token in the data layer, which is encouraging.
Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, so it's being more context aware. And then yeah, you can default multi-select. That's cool. Dates we already talked about, and that one also has the current date. And checkbox, you can have it checked. So that's cool. So there's a few.
That just eliminated a slew of automations I have. So.
Yeah, right. I remember very early on, I wrote a script when scripting came out of like default settings for fields, and before they even had like default text values.
Yeah. So
yeah, definitely improvement on that front. Okay, that concludes our round the bases. Moving on, onto our backups. If you are relying on backups or relying on Airtable for your business, best practice is to have backups outside of Airtable. That's where OntoAir comes in. It helps save your data, your metadata, and all your attachment data into Box, Dropbox, or Google Drive. I believe Brian mentioned he's a customer of OntoAir, so thank you, Brian. Very good. So check it out, ontoair.com. Use promo code BuiltOnAir, and that will get you a discount. And so yeah, use OntoAir for your backup needs.
It's been very reliable.
Awesome. Very good. Thanks to hear that. Cool. Brian, let's find out a little bit about yourself. Why don't you give us a history on what you're up to and really how you came into this world of Airtable?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. I was excited about when I found the podcast because I love to talk about Airtable as well. And so I was like, oh, this seems like a place where I can hang out. So I'm a career technologist. I started as an electrical engineer, but moved over to software engineering a long time ago, pre-internet days, and got to ride the internet wave early on as a developer, which was fun. And, that led into management roles. And then for the last 22 years, I've been, a CIO, a CTO, or CISO for various organizations. And the last 4 years, I've been a consultant. So for my company, Cleartone Consulting. 501 CISO is my security branded side of consulting that's aimed specifically at the nonprofit and association markets, which is 501c. So I've most of my career having been around software and software development and working for companies that was building product. I just love building things, that are software based. It's like it's a passion of mine, something that I've enjoyed. And so getting away from actual coding and, into management and leadership levels, I've always felt a little bit of a lack there, missing that ability to get in and build. When I was working for organizations, I had teams that were doing that. But when I branched out on my own as a consultant, then I was really missing. Then I no longer had a team to do that. And so Airtable has really kind of filled that gap for me in a way. So as soon as I have an idea on something, I'm able to go in and develop, an app for that. So I've that's kind of brought that excitement back to me. And in fact, I have a natural tendency I found to want to try to mess around with Airtable and build things, even above my other paid work, which is actually, more higher paid work than what I might do on the Airtable side, which is kind of funny, but it's just because I enjoy it so much. What really brought me into Airtable was, so when I decided to start providing the security specific side of my work. There's a whole group of there's an industry out there for CISOs or large organizations that are doing a lot of assessments to organize security assessments, against multiple customers, against multiple companies. And so I did an evaluation of, I probably looked at 12, 13 different platforms out there, and many of them are very, very nice, but they're all extremely expensive, in my opinion, up to $3,000 a year per customer. And so if you have multiple customers as I do in this realm, I've got 10 or 12 security customers. That would have obviously turned out to be a lot of money, right? Which doesn't make sense as a solopreneur at all. And so, in seeing some of those apps, I thought, well, I understand what those apps are doing. I actually started to think about engaging with a developer to build an app, that was custom to me, because that was even going to be less expensive. But in doing that, I modeled the database, and then I thought, I'm going to go look for a tool. And this is knowing that Airtable was out there. Maybe I can do this myself. And so I started doing evaluations and started looking at it, and I came across Airtable. And then I started with a free account, as everyone does, and just started modeling the system out. And I just went boom from 1 to 50 with it, because I think probably 2 weeks later I had my system done, and I was able to conduct business, start conducting assessments in the system, and I was hooked immediately. Then I was like, all right, this is where it's at. So since then I've continued that, so that it's become my customer CRM as well as my newsletter CRM. But so all of my customers are in there, whether I'm doing security work for them or not. All my time tracking is in that. It's really become an ERP for me to just runs my business from A to Z. And I've just kind of continued to add on it, week after week, and just build functions into it. So I've really enjoyed that. What I was going to end up showing today that I thought was, maybe, a lot of people have done things like that, and maybe, there's nothing necessarily unique, maybe around a CRM or something aspect to it, just uses the basic functionality. But I did do something regarding LinkedIn that I thought maybe it was somewhat, it was unique to me, at least when I did it. And I thought people may have interest in it. So as a solopreneur, I have to do, marketing and sales, as well as the operational side of delivering everything I do. And so obviously when you start getting busy with an operational side and delivering the product and the service, what starts to suffer is the marketing side of things. And LinkedIn is one of my primary outlets for just having a presence. Since with 501c, I operate primarily in a nonprofit and an association space, and they're pretty active on LinkedIn and have communities on LinkedIn. And so I'd like to be active in posting on LinkedIn and posting content, on LinkedIn. But what I found last fall was that I was moving away from that, and because of being busy doing other things. And so where I was going from 1 to 2 posts a week, I was slipping off to 1 every other week, and then 1 every third week I'd go out and try to post. And it started becoming this little nagging thing where I started setting reminders in my calendar, like, hey, you need to go post. And I started ignoring them. And, so finally, one day I was just like, oh, well, why don't I just automate this, right? And then I don't have to worry about it. And so that's what started me down this path of thinking of utilizing Airtable in this way, particularly when Airtable delivered or deployed the AI aspect to what they're doing. Because I also didn't want to just be posting the same thing over and over and over on LinkedIn. And so that's what led to this idea of me building this small little application that would help me keep current in LinkedIn, as well as with fresh content on LinkedIn. And so that's what I was going to share today with you.
Yeah, maybe before you jump into that question, I'd be curious, with your background and expertise, have you ever looked at Airtable from a security perspective? Because because I've heard a lot of people. We talked a couple weeks ago about a potential data leak and how easy it is to share data. I'd be curious, like your perspective as a security. How do you evaluate Airtable as a product from a security standpoint?
Yeah, I've gone as far as just what Airtable shares, reviewing what they share specifically around their security. I do think it's interesting that they've recently released the HIPAA, which means, that's a regulated space, right? With a compliance framework there. And it's not easy, I'd say to pass that compliance. You really have to have your ducks in a row. So that's raised my confidence that they're paying attention to security on the because there's a pretty big curtain between really knowing what they're doing and and what you just have to take what they say. But to go as far as to make that proclamation, it means they put some significant investment in that. So that's nice. I don't, with any of my customers that I'm consulting with, I caution them on what they would want to put in there, what kind of information to put in. You need to but that's with any cloud platform, right? That's not just Airtable. I mean, so I don't really view it as any different of any cloud platform at all, whether that be Dropbox, Box, Salesforce, anything. There are all these cloud platforms, and their security is your security, right? You're relying on these groups, and so you have to go in as much as you can with your eyes wide open. But other than in these cases, really, there's not much more you can do than just trying to probe the company, maybe connect, ask some questions, and see what they're providing in terms of what their security is, and then following your own best practices too, which might be policies around cautioning who you share things with, and having some structure around that, people being aware of data, and then account management, and utilizing things like MFA where you can and where it's appropriate. So that's my views on it.
Gotcha. Cool. And give a pitch, maybe who should be reaching out to you and where can they find you?
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can reach me at either website at cleartoneconsulting.com or 501cso.com. Has both ways to connect with me on there. It's Brian Scott with an I, Brian Scott at cleartoneconsulting.com is my email. And I'd say anyone who's has a need for either my CTO services or my CISO services. I deal with mainly small to medium-sized businesses that are either trying to build software and need some leadership around structuring teams and processes around building software, or groups that have concerns around their security and need some leadership on maybe even working with their MSP, but to assess their current risk situation and creating a roadmap plan to shore up their cybersecurity controls.
Gotcha. Very cool. All right. It looks like you're also a musician.
I am, or maybe more used to be than I am currently, but I still putter around with a little bit, but not nearly as much as I used to. But I think the guitars look great, so I always keep them in the background.
Yeah, it's quite the collection. Got
it's always a nice icebreaker if I'm on with a client. If I get a customer that's a musician, then I'm immediately their friend.
Yeah. Very good. Cool. With that, why don't we see what you've got going on? I'll put your screen on. And actually, real quick, we'll do a transition. So yeah, you're going to be talking about this LinkedIn posting system that you built. So take it away.
Yeah, thanks. So one of the things that I noted with posts on LinkedIn is, one thing I noted personally is that I like to reuse some of them. I've made these graphics, like this happens to be about free resources that people can get. And so I'd want to repost this graphic on some kind of period. And prior to creating this system, I just had the graphic stored off in some, directory somewhere. And I would just ad hoc write something every time and go find the image and kind of just recreate the post over and over at some period. Or I'd go find the old post in this big long list of posts and, try to repost it. And that was just a pain. And then I would lose track on, well, when did I post what? And, and which one should I post now? And so I really had no insight into that whatsoever. And so that kind of led me to create a system that could support several different modes of posting to LinkedIn. So first off, I'll say that if I just have a one-time post, like let's on, maybe someone else made a post that I want to reference, I'll just go straight to LinkedIn still and do that, right? Because it's not a piece of content that I want to maintain. But if it is something that I might have value of reposting in the future, then it's a piece of content I want to retain, then I'm going to want to put it in Airtable. I use make.com basically to handle the integration and the posting. But there's, and if you go to make.com, you'll see I have several different scenarios there around that, and it kind of supports the different types of posting that I have. And so under status, before I get into these fields and what they do, you'll notice that enabled is my general status of, I have one make job that basically on a schedule just comes and looks for the latest. If I scroll down here, you'll see one post it's the next one to go, and it'll just pick up that post on this scheduled basis, right? And so it's only looking, and the script that sets that next post is only from enabled. So I can disable one if I want to keep it on the shelf but don't have it rotate for a while. But I can also do an instant post. So if I want to create something in here, store it as content to post in the future, but I want to post it right now, I can make it an instant post, and I have a make job that will pick that up, post immediately, and then change it to enabled afterwards. So then it just goes in. I have some terms, which I'll talk about. So like if I want to post something once a month and I don't want it in my general mix, I just, or once a week for a term, then I can do that as well. And I have the make jobs that basically align to those things, right? And so in general, what I've got here is a record for each post. I have an image library in case I want to reuse some of these images, like my logo. You'll see I reuse a lot, and so instead of just storing them, I just reference it once. And then I type my post just so I'd like to know, well, how many educational posts do I have? How many service announcements? How many testimonials from customers? I can just kind of get some data myself, metadata around what kind of things I've got in there. But you can see right now I have 49 different pieces of content that I'm going to cycle through on a regular basis. And in Make, this scheduled post right here, and I'm posting. I used to post once a day, but now I'm posting Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So what's great about that is I don't have to do the post. It just picks it up for me. So I can go on vacation and I'm still posting on LinkedIn. I can be in calls and I'm still happening, and I can change that to the period that I want. I have a separate one that's Fridays only, that's pulling. On Fridays, I was going to start making cybersecurity jokes because the world needs more cybersecurity comedians out there, and I've decided to fill that gap. And so Friday is a cybersecurity post, but it's a joke and it's all AI driven. And I'll show you some of those. So basically, I'm sorted here by the last post date. So this was one on Monday. That was, and as you scroll down, they get older and older, and so it's basically pulling off the bottom. Sorry for the scroll. This is one I just created today. So it talk about the last post. Or a default for a date. This one I was defaulting to 2000. Every time that script runs and it finds this flag and posts it, it removes the flag, and I have an automation that then finds the oldest post, right, and then makes it the next one to go. So it kind of first in, last out, kind of just rolls them around. At any point in time, if I don't want that, I'm like, no, I don't want this one, I can just uncheck it myself and say, I really want this one to go tomorrow, and just click it. And then it'll work, and then just goes right back into its last, first in, last out role. So that's kind of handy. So I guess let me show you one more thing with the scrolling here. So I mentioned monthly terms, so I can have a type that's once a month, and I have a make.com, which will just look for those and just push those out. Sometime if I have a webinar that's coming up, I might do one weekly for 4 weeks out, and then 3 days before I'll met one daily for 3 days with a term with a start and end day, and all of that stuff is automated. I just have to put it in there, put the right dates in, and it just goes. And here's my Friday only, which is my humorous ones, my comedic, right? And so these will only go on Fridays, and I'll, when I get into the AI of this, I'll explain that. So that's kind of the engine, the logistics of the engine that's working there. So now let's talk about how I might use AI and Airtable's AI capability. So first off, for some of my posts, like a quote, a customer quote, I don't want AI dealing with that. And so it's a static post text. And that's where I've got a quote from one of my customers. I don't want it being changed. I want it to be exactly the same. And so I put it in static post, right? The field that make is picking up is this formula, which is obviously if there's static, pull that. If not, then pull the AI. Simple. But I needed that capability so I can make those when I need to. As I'm scrolling to get to the AI part here, I'm tracking, how many times it's been posted, the dates that it's been posted, and what the last post date was, just so I kind of get a record of those things. So then we get to the AI prompt part. And you see I have two fields here. I have an AI prompt and an AI output. So this is the AI output is the AI field type itself. But then I have another one that's just a prompt, and this is not an AI type. It's it's just a long text. The reason for that is I found that there's some logistical, like some details you need to talk about how you want the post to look, and I didn't want to keep recreating that, right? And so in my AI, I'll talk about my AI output first. This is what it says. It says, make a brief marketing LinkedIn post following the prompt found in my AI prompt field. So that's and that field is straightforward, like describe blah, 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 or something like that. And I'll look at that. But this is where you kind of get into some of the cleanup, like don't include hashtags, don't include icons, don't include emojis. Don't start with the phrase LinkedIn fam. It started doing that, like, hey, LinkedIn fam. I'm like, I would not say that. So don't do that. Make the style conversational, make it a length between 400 and 600. And this is a bit where the magic starts. So regenerate it when the last post update changes. All right. So that's my trigger for my AI ones to rephrase it. And then, include at the end a paragraph using this URL here, this info URL saying how they can contact me. So that's kind of like the logistical structure.
So that regenerate, how does that work?
Yeah. And so it says, anytime that my last post date is updated, it's going to regenerate off of this prompt for me. And so that's exactly what make.com does. So when make comes in here and grabs the record with the field and posts it, then it updates last post date from make.com. And that updating then will regenerate where that is, right?
I did not know you could automatically regenerate like that just through the prompt.
Yeah.
That is cool.
That is cool. And so my prompts, are much more simpler, like, discuss how organizations can do something, describe how, so they're more like just like a straight prompt that you'd put into ChatGPT or something, right? Mm-hmm. But I that's why I separated in to keep the logistical part of it and then just the straight prompt. So when I add something, I can just kind of make a very easy prompt in here, right? But so there's another aspect to this, which, talking about what make.com does for me, and let me open that up real quickly because there's one other important thing that it does. So I put a little test flag in here in case I don't want it to. I'm sorry, I've got my phone ringing. Let's stop that. In case I just want to test this without actually posting to LinkedIn. This is where it updates LinkedIn, but it also sends me a Slack notification that the post occurred, right? So I've kind of always got a sense of what's going on. It's something I'm not doing here. I'm actually doing this from Airtable. I realized, oh, wait a minute, I'm having AI generate a new post. I want to lay eyes on that before I've just accepted it, right? Because, AI, you can't quite trust it yet. It could say some crazy things out of the blue. I could have done that from within Make, but I actually didn't. I just said inside of, I have an automation inside of, it's one of these. It's a send an email one right here, updated. So when I update a post, with that, it sends me an email. And the reason I did that is Slack, quite honestly, this is posted all the time. I don't go to the Slack channel and really look at it all the time. I do look at my emails all the time, right? I'm there. And so I wanted it in front of me. So when it does create a new AI generated, sends me a nice little email with the text. And believe it or not, I'm actually pretty good about it. I'll read through everything that it says. And so and that's my approval process. I'm like, yep, that's fine. Just delete the email. Don't worry about it. There have been a few times, and I'd say maybe 1 out of 20 AI posts where it just says something that I just didn't like the way it said it, or it might have gotten a little strange. And so that's fine. All I do to come in here to regenerate is I just come in and I just have to update this date again, right? And I could just change the time to 1 minute or change it or whatever. I just have to update it, and then it auto generates again. I'll get another email with, what the new is. But and never before I've never had it where I've auto generated it a second time and I didn't like the second one. I was just like, that's fine, right? In fact, it's very rare. It might be less than 1 in 20. It might be 1 in 30 that I actually don't like what it's doing, what it's saying. So that way, when that same post with the same image comes around and I'm, for another time, it's not the same thing that I'm saying. It's same content, same idea, but I've said it a little bit differently, right? I don't know if that has anything to do with LinkedIn algorithms on impressions and putting things up front. But I thought, well, it doesn't hurt to try to make it as, I thought it's not going to be good if I'm just posting the exact same thing over and over. I'm sure that's not going to be helpful. And, quite honestly, I guess, most people I've talked to are unaware that any of my posts have AI. And my prompts are pretty detailed. So I'm writing a lot of it. It's not like just make a cybersecurity post, that's not that. It's pretty detailed about what I want it to say. So, it's got that in there, but often the content is, the word by word generated from that. So that's it in a nutshell. That's kind of the system and the feedback loops I have. And just to end this, and I hope I haven't gone too long, but I'll read like some of my funny ones, which is this was looking to whip up a tasty treat that packs a punch. Try making a cyber cake using these ingredients: a pinch of phishing, a dash of malware, a sprinkle of social engineering, and a dollop of ransomware. Mix it all together with a strong password and bake for a secure network. All right. So that's my cake one, my cybersecurity cake, so, and that was AI generated, so I'm trying to think of just other ways of kind of creating those things just for a little fun.
Yeah. Wow. This is awesome. This is so cool. I've learned some cool tricks that I was not aware of before.
Great. That was my hope. I hope others will find some value of it as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Brian.
I love it.
And got some ideas for future stuff. So awesome. Let's move on. We'll give a shout out. If you are not in our community, you can learn from amazing people like Brian and others. We have thousands of Airtable users in the community. So check us out, BuiltOnAir.com/join. We'll get you in for free, and sign up for our newsletter as well. Okay. with that, we'll finish off with Alli and her stacked bar charts. There you go.
Awesome. All right. I had seen a post in Slack the other day with a screenshot of a cool-looking bar chart, and people were asking about it, and it reminded me of a couple things I've done for a couple projects. So I thought it would be a cool little hack to highlight. Just a cool way of getting a nice-looking bar chart. So I have here a pretty simple base. I've got opportunities linked to months, and those are the two tables I'm really going to be dealing with here. So I'm going to give you two examples. One is going to be based on the number of opportunities per month, and then we'll take into account the estimated value afterwards. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to create a count field on my months table to count up how many opportunities I have per month. So I'm going to grab this count field, and we'll just call it like opportunity count. And I'm going to just count the number of opportunities I have per month. And then I want to bring that field back over here to compare each record to that number. So a cool little thing you can do, actually, one option would be I could, look it up or roll up that number as its own field. Let me grab month close, opportunity count. And I could do, I could have this number here, and then I could use another field to get the percentage of each row out of the number. But you can also just do that right within the roll-up formula itself, which I like to do a lot of the time to save on the number of fields that I have on a table. So essentially, I want to say for each row here, I want to know what percentage of the total count I have for each record. So I usually, whenever I'm doing a number with division, I always start with an if statement. So I'm going to say if I have the divisor, right? So if there is a count, which in this case there probably always will be, but that's okay. And then I'm going to say 1 out of that count, right? So this would be the number of records or number in this field here on opportunity count, and I'm dividing that by 1 each time. Then I'm going to go and do my formatting, and I'm changing this to a percentage, and usually I do like 2 decimal places. I'm going to rename this to percent of total opportunities. So then you can see here, because I've got 2 records in February, each one is 50%, right? 3 records, each one is 33%. And this sum here is always going to add up to 100%. And that's the most important thing for this little hack here. Second, I'm going to just do the same thing, but I'm going to use the estimated value to roll up. So if I roll up the total estimated value for each opportunity. So now I've got the sum of each month's potential revenue for all the opportunities. And then I'm going to do essentially, I can duplicate this field. And then percent of total estimated value will be what I'm looking at instead. So I'm just going to flip the field I'm looking at to the total estimated value. And then instead of dividing it by 1, I'm going to divide it by I'm going to do the total estimated value. The estimated value per opportunity divided by the total estimated value for the whole month. Oh, well, it tried to be smarter than me, and it set the format to currency, but I'm going to flip that back to percentage. So now I can see this 6,000 is 38% of my total potential month. This 10 is the 61.9. And again, everything here adds up to that 100% in each month bucket. So now that I've got those numbers, I can go into an interface, and I'm just going to create a new page. We'll go with the new dashboard layout, which I'm trying to love. There's some weird things about it I don't love, but that's okay. Let's just play with this bar chart it gave me. The x-axis, I'm going to change this to my close date. If we look at each close date here, I've got an automation that links it up to the actual month record, but each one of these close dates should still be within that month. So if I bucket my chart by month, then I've got, everything in the order I wanted it based on that date. And now my y-axis, I'm going to change this to be a summary. And I'm going to go to my, let's do percent of total opportunities, and then change it to sum. Interesting. I wonder what I've got going on there. Do I not? Maybe I'm not including the empty. No, that's weird. Well, problem solving on the fly. Let's look at why I've got that. So it starts.
August.
It's April 2022, and that's odd because you know what? I did something weird, just demo base, and see that the months and years aren't even adding up here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't changed this in a while. So instead of the close date, I'm going to just go to month close. There we go.
There we go.
So if my dates actually did line up and I didn't do something weird with this base, then it would have worked. But this is exactly what I would expect to see, is everything adds up to 100%. And now I'm going to group it by, let's say status. So now I start to get some pretty cool insights into my data here. So I can see all right, out of, May 2020, 20% of my opportunities were lost, and I closed 40% of them, and 40% were still in the qualification round. But December 2020 closed 100%, so that's pretty cool. Then we could duplicate that, and instead of doing the percent of total, we could do the percent of the estimated value. And that didn't change too much because my numbers are apparently pretty in line with the number of opportunities. But now you can see, we lost 25% of our potential revenue for June 2020. So you start to be able to kind of see your data as a whole and break that down into chunks, depending on where you want to slice it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That is a nice little hack there.
Absolutely. This works really well too for percent complete of a project, right? You could imagine if you have your statuses, the top of the bar might be gray if you haven't started the task, and then green. So kind of mini progress bars across. Mm-hmm. So really cool little hack you can use for all sorts of different use cases. And I think it looks nice and clean. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Of course.
A nice hack there. We'll wrap up just to get closure on one of the things we talked about in Round the Bases, I believe in this one. If we didn't get a good answer on the LinkedIn or the linked record item. So Scott helps us out here. A couple comments from Scott. It's for creating new linked records. You can't hit return anymore. The linked record issue they were talking about earlier is when you're trying to create a new linked record from the linked record field. If you type what you want to add and the list of records disappears because there are no matches, you used to be able to hit return to create the new linked record not anymore. You have to hit the down arrow first. So that's the issue. So yeah, so if it's not there when you look for it and you wanted to create a new one, which probably makes more sense. Anyways, but yeah, change in behavior. All right, this concludes today's show. Glad you could be with us, Brian. Thanks so much for joining us and your exciting stuff. Look forward to hearing what you've got going on in the future. We'd love to have you back.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, and we'll see everybody next week. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining today's episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check out our sponsor, OntoAir Backups, automated backups for Airtable. We'll see you next time on the Built on Air podcast.